Okay, for the next part of this project, and I'm not done with her face or her arms. I want to get some background going and then we'll come back to that. I'm using bronze yellow. I'm hoping I have enough of this. I want to add it to the background, a lot of it. I have a feeling I may not have enough of it, which is going to be a big bummer. You can take a wipe and just kind of spread that color a little bit. It's changing the color of these bricks now a little bit, and just spreading that color onto the bricks but not really putting paint onto it. Coming back over here, I don't really want brush strokes, but because of this paint, it's kind of what you're going to get. You can mix it with gesso. Sometimes that helps to not make it so... Also, my brush I'm using is not the best choice, but you can see already adding some gesso in there just kind of changes the consistency of it a little bit. Kind of blends it around. I'm going to use carbon black, and I'm going to paint her dress black. Okay. I like rough lines, rough edges. It's personal preference. You can do a more finished look. It's just what I prefer at the moment. That does seem to change. Okay, so we're gonna get started now on back on the arms and the hands. I have to tell you, I'm so like nervous about this because it's an area that I definitely want to improve upon, and I feel nervous teaching you all about it just because I don't feel like I'm very good at it. But you know, here we are, here we go, and And you know what? If it's not perfect, that's okay, right? We're learning. So I have just my Stabilo and the black. And I just kind of redefined those lines on the outside. Now I'm adding water just to kind of darken the outside now that I've painted around. You know what I want to do too is get, I don't really love this easel very much. Get right there. Okay, so I'm just going to use gesso and my Stabilo black Marksol, and we're just going to go for it. So I'm just going to kind of do, add in some highlights, and then I'll go in with my Neos also. But I think what is really important is just kind of creating that texture with the gesso, and just like variations of color in here, even if it's not, you know, perfect with how it should really look. I'm okay with that. Right now I'm using the Liquitex gesso, this one here. And I'm, you know, wetting my brush at times and kind of going back in and blending it all. And then adding a little more gesso. Kind of really scraping that around, and just kind of making this a little bit darker in here. And then I'm going to add more gesso in there. So I'm just kind of trying to like even out just what the, so it doesn't have like splotchy areas, or just trying to get the texture to look and feel the way that I want it to on the arm. And then I'll start adding in a little bit of color. So we'll add to and then take away, and I like it to have kind of like this clouded look, and so like this really was just like one layer, and so now you can see how this is like super gray, but this has just some various colors going on because I'm, you know, adding gesso a little bit at a time, and then adding water and just kind of mixing the colors around just to kind of get that clouded look. Try and make this look a little bit more like a hand. So right now I'm just kind of putting it in, and then scraping it around. I'm not really looking for defined fingers yet. This will definitely be lighter up there. We can tell that that is it's like the knuckle, you know. So like the knuckles are going to be a little bit wider because they're standing out further than the rest of the hand, right? So already that's starting to look more like a hand. And then we want this part back here just to be a little bit wider. You can see I just took my Stabilo and added just a little bit of black in there. And then I wet it and I'm moving that around just a little tiny bit. Oops, oh goodness gracious. Okay, so get that out of there fast. And then I'm going to have to go in and kind of redefine that area because that white just took over big time. So but already that looks so much better than it did than when we started on this part. And like this. Pinky is like so dark. And that's going to be a little bit darker in there. Add a little Stabilo and then spread that. Ah, too much. All right, so that's looking better. I'm gonna kind of hold off there on that. And now we're going to come over to this side and just gonna add a little bit. So kind of like how that's going. So now we can start adding in some color, and I'm going to bring back in I'm actually going to bring in the sienna, I think, first. Got a little bit more yellow in her face than I wanted, but at the same time I do kind of like it too. So I added in my Neo and a little bit of water. I don't do too much water because I don't want it all over every single area. So now I've added in my ochre. I'll probably go back up and add in some more sienna to her face. So now I've got the ochre. I'm going to come in with the ochre first, and then I'll go back in with the sienna over here on this arm. So I have a little bit more yellow in here than I want, or a little bit more ochre, but that's okay. I can come back in with the gesso. So you're just going to scrub that all over. And then I'm going to go back over in the middle here because I want this to be lighter. Going back in with gesso. Back in here. I just wet my brush. It's going to help me to kind of get this all blended in a little bit better. You can use your finger. And then I'm going to go back over to these spots that I wanted little bit more than I wanted. So you gotta be careful sometimes. So then I just wet my brush, kind of drag it. Put a little on there, a little gesso, and then I wet it. I'm dragging it around. Just a little bit up here. Okay, that looks better. And let's just come over here and I added some and then I wiped, taking some away. The knuckles a lot of times kind of I sure hope my head isn't in the way for this.